Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Spotlight on Success, where my goal is to bring you tips and strategies to help you sharpen your competitive edge in business. And today I am very excited about this topic, one that we have not covered before, but that is vitally important to business success, which is Oh No, I Owe, all about business taxes with our guest expert, Cora Parks. And before we jump right in, I want to give you a little bit of background on Cora and give her a proper introduction. The principal, Cora Parks, is a lifelong Atlantan whose vision is to bring proactive tax counsel and personal responsibility to the masses in the area of taxation. She is the author and editor of the financial blog Tax Today, a blog that provides readers with information on federal tax topics. Her well-respected, easy-to-understand tax articles have appeared in the Chicago Tribune, Time Warner, How To, Demand Studios, Helio, Article Base, and Hub Pages, to name just a few. That's fabulous. Cora, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be there. And hello, everyone that's listening.
Yes. Well, we're excited to have you on as well because if anybody who's watching is like me, I don't like any financial surprises, and especially when it comes to my taxes. I like to know what to expect up front so that I'm not in a pinch situation. But
Right.
Today we're talking about those times when women entrepreneurs may find themselves in that pinch situation. So let's start with a pretty basic one, which is, if taxes are owed, which quite often we do owe taxes, but perhaps we haven't set enough money aside to pay them in full right now. What's the better option, in your professional opinion, to do the payment extension or a payment plan?
That would depend on how long that individual needs to pay the taxes. If a person feels that they can pay the taxes short term, which would be less than 120 days, and they want to minimize the amount of interest and penalty that they pay, then they should ask for a short-term extension. Other than that, if they feel that financially they would not be able to pay within 120 days, then they can ask for a payment plan, which would allow them to pay a small amount each month. But of course, over the long haul, they would end up paying more because, of course, the payment term would be longer, which would extend the amount of time for interest and penalties to be charged.
Mm-hmm. But it does provide a business owner that buffer or that time over which they can pay something off if there's just absolutely no way that they can come up with the money.
That is correct, yes.
Well, we obviously don't want those kinds of surprises if we can all avoid them. So how can a woman prevent that surprise of owing more than she expected to start with?
Okay, one way would be that the Internal Revenue Service has a form which is called the 1040-ES, and that is an estimated tax form, whereas, and it may be hard to do, but one can complete this form. It's available every year, and you estimate or guesstimate just how much in earnings you will have. You would also guesstimate, if applicable, the amount of expenses that you would have, deductions, credits, and things of that nature, and also how much you expect to have paid in, or how much in credits you expect to have to your account. This way you can guesstimate what your liability would be in advance, and you are able to make quarterly payments toward that amount. And if you do this, this would alleviate one having large balances toward the end of the year. Now, of course, this only will work if, for example, let's just say a person guesstimates, but what happens oftentimes than not is that the individual, when the estimate comes up, they don't have the money to pay. So in those cases, they unfortunately end up back into the same situation. Even if you estimate, if you don't have the money to pay, then you'll still end up having to pay it as you can. But the better way, of course, would be to pay just like an employee has taxes withheld from his pay during the course of the year. Then also a small business owner would also just send his or her liability to the IRS during the course of the year over a 4-quarter span of time.
Well, and I'm guessing that your recommendation would be for women to pretty much set aside a specific percentage of their earnings,
right,
every month, or depending on how often they intake those payments from clients or whatever, but to set aside that money in some sort of savings account or something, and then the hope would be that perhaps you've set aside a little too much rather than too little, but then you've got the money already there. And then go through the process of the worksheet that you recommended people use and guesstimate the most appropriate amount to go ahead and send off.
Honestly, for most of us, taxes are not a priority. They are pretty much way down on the totem pole of obligations. But as a business owner, unfortunately, the difference between a business owner and an individual is that taxes do have to be a little bit higher up on the totem pole because, of course, that is your business, your livelihood, and especially if you are a business owner with employees, it can cause major problems if you don't set aside or prioritize your taxes.
Mm-hmm. In the event that someone has been diligent and is in that position of being in a payment plan. They've arranged that with the IRS, and they're in a payment plan situation, and they have been very diligent and consistent with their payments, but now, for whatever reason, things have changed financially for them, and they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. How can I continue? Do they have options at that point?
Yes, they can contact the Internal Revenue Service. Usually if they receive their monthly billing statement or have received a prior notice, there will be a number on there for them to call. They can explain to the representative that they get that they have a financial hardship that has come about. For example, their business, they may have been subject to a slowdown, or they have accounts that are outstanding. People are not paying them, and they are no longer to maintain the payments that they once did. So they can either request a reduction, that is, if that will work for them, so they'll be able to get back on their feet, or it may be a situation where they can no longer pay at all. Then the office will specifically ask them what their situation is. They may have to go through a financial analysis, whereas the office can, tailor a plan for them or suspend the payments. Now, unfortunately, in either case, whether or not you end up with reduced payments or suspended payments, meaning that for a certain point in time, up to a year, you can go without making payments unless you voluntarily make payments. Unfortunately, the interest does not stop. The penalties won't stop, so that will be added on to your balance. So, of course, that will be something that you will have to revisit in the future. Definitely consider, if your situation, you can show that you are never going to be able to pay that amount within a 5-year period, you should definitely consider an offer, making the Internal Revenue Service an offer. It may take a while to go through the process, because they are going to do a thorough investigation. But and I have worked with people that have done this, but of course the rewarding part is that, for example, a client that owed over 30 grand, they managed to settle for $5,000.
Wow.
So now it took close to a year, but the result was that they managed to settle their tax debt.
Well, none of us want to get into a bad situation with the IRS. And as I mentioned to you before we started the recording, I had a situation where the IRS made a decimal point error on one of my returns a couple of years ago, and it literally took over a year of back and forth with them to get them to correct it and reset their notes in the account, or in my account in their system, to show that I did not owe. It was over like $22,000 in tax liability, which was freaking me out. So if somebody is in that similar position and they are, for whatever reason, experiencing long-standing problems with the IRS regarding a balance that they're disputing owing, what can they do if the IRS is just stonewalling them and they're not getting anywhere? What would you recommend that someone do in that situation?
There is an office that is within the Internal Revenue Service but independent of the Internal Revenue Service called the Taxpayer Advocate. And people may have heard of Nina Olson, who is the Taxpayer Advocate. What she does is she has a report that she makes to Congress, because she does not report to the Internal Revenue Service. She reports directly to Congress regarding situations and circumstances that face the average taxpayer on a yearly basis. And some of the things that she has addressed over the years is IRS service being slow. As far as correspondence is concerned, the fact that Internal Revenue Service, it takes a long time for them to address their correspondence. Identity theft, which of course is the FTC's #1 problem today. But the office from which Ms. Olson works with, the Taxpayer Advocate, there are local taxpayer advocates. These individuals, when you contact them, they work with you. You are assigned an individual caseworker that you have, unlike when you contact the Internal Revenue Service 800 number, you can talk to one of five, we'll just say 5,000 people. You will never get the same person twice, because you will never have a point of contact except when you work with the Taxpayer Advocate. You have that person's name, phone number. They work with you, between you and the Internal Revenue Service, to resolve your issue. Now, on your end, you are expected to give them the documentation that they need to resolve your case. You should request transcripts, which are free. There is no cost to do this, just to match it up with your return to make sure that everything is okay. And of course, one can also request transcripts of payer information. That is, for example, if you were, payer information would be bank accounts. That is to make sure that the interest reported is correct. Also, stock transactions, that the amounts reported by those payers are correct. If you've gambled and the amounts were such that they could be reported to the Internal Revenue Service. And also people that paid you for jobs, that they may request your federal ID number or your social security number, depending on which one that you use. And they report to the IRS that they paid you X number of dollars. Now, I would say that it's probably a good idea to request transcripts, just to make sure that, for example, this has happened, whereas someone reported that they paid you more than they actually paid you. And of course, you end up getting a letter from the IRS regarding this discrepancy. So just to make sure that not only the Internal Revenue Service, but of course the payers, because you may not necessarily know what the payer is doing, because they may, in some cases, try to pull a fast one and report more than what they actually paid you. It may be a good idea to order those transcripts, just to make sure that the information reported by payers is also accurate, so you don't get a contact from the Internal Revenue Service. You're blindsided wondering, why is this payer saying that they paid me um, X number of dollars that they did not pay me?
So this has just been fantastic today, and I'm guessing that there are women watching who would love to know more information about the tax strategy that you offer, ways that women can protect themselves, etc. So for more information on what you do, Cora, where can people go?
To a couple of places. The first place that I like to start is for free information, because we all like free information, which is to the blog, which is blog.taxtoday.info.
Great.
Mostly the posts are geared towards individuals, and also, of course, there are business posts, the most important of those being the information regarding records and what you should keep. And also there are lots of posts about the taxpayer advocate. And also the website, taxtoday.info, that is if you need more personalized help.
Lots of information. And Cora, this is on a topic that scares the pants off lots of people. So I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to have you on Spotlight so that you could share these wonderful tips and strategies for the scenario when we do owe money, certainly unexpectedly, and how to proactively get ourselves out of that pickle. And
right.
So I thank you so much for being on the show, and I thank everyone for watching and tuning in, and we hope that you will stay tuned for our next episode of Spotlight on Success, where we'll continue to bring you more strategies and tactics that you can use to take your business to the next level. Until next time, I challenge you all to shine brightly.